Welcome back. Let's take a look at what's leading the papers today, starting with the Sunday Telegraph. It reports that civil servants who favoured Remain in the EU referendum are forcing Theresa May into a soft Brexit. On the front page of the Mail on Sunday, US President Donald Trump has criticised Theresa May's handling of those Brexit negotiations. The Sunday Times leads with an undercover investigation and claims that former cabinet ministers are profiting from Brexit by offering advice to potential investors. The Observer reports that 60% of schools in the government's flagship academies programme are warning that underfunding is putting their existence at risk. And the Sunday Express, it leads with the government's plan to crack down on rogue parking firms. I sincerely appreciate that particular initiative by the government anyway. Joining me to discuss all of the stories, well, the ones that they like anyway, the broadcaster and former SNP MP John Nicolson, Labour commentator Ayesha Hazarika and editor of Brexit Central, Jonathan Isaby. Lovely to see you all. Very good morning. And Jonathan, we're going to start with you, shall we? Inside the Observer, there are some issues around Brexit at the moment, are there?
Yes, well, I picked out the piece by Toby Helm, the political editor of the Observer, who's done a bit of a curtain raiser on what's going to be another big week for Brexit. It seems like every week's a big week for Brexit at the moment, frankly. But on Tuesday and Wednesday, as you know, you've got the House of Lords debating the withdrawal bill. You had Lady Altman and Tim Bell on earlier. And he reports that a record number of peers are going to speak in this debate. One of them tells him it's all going to be great fun. Well, frankly, it shouldn't be all that much fun because we had a referendum that decided that the people wanted to leave the European Union. And there's a concern here that a lot of peers, and Lord Adonis has become the self-appointed leader of the anti-Brexit faction in the House of Lords, who basically want to try and wreck this bill, which is delivering on the will of the people from the referendum.
You missed Baroness Altman. I mean, she was saying it's just going to be an incredibly constructive process. This is what the second chamber is for.
Well, the second chamber is there to revise and advise the government not to block legislation which has effectively been given a mandate bigger than ever before.
The second chamber seems to be here to save us in this particular context, because one recurring theme in all the papers today is Brexit chaos, just how badly wrong the whole process is going. Because, of course, you're absolutely right. People did, at least in England and Wales, vote for Brexit, but they didn't vote to become poorer. And the problem about Brexit is it is so chaotic. Our ministers have absolutely no idea what they're doing in the UK government, and that's a theme of all the papers.
And, I mean, just to pick up on that, I think, we talk a lot about the concept of take back control, which was a big mantra. And actually, it is not ignoble for our own parliament, our own secondary chamber, to scrutinise in the way that they see fit. And picking up on what you said, there's even deep division within the cabinet about what Brexit should look like. You had David Lidington out this morning basically saying, look, we've got to minimise the disruption to businesses. As John said, nobody voted to be poorer. And, our economy, we've just come through a huge financial sort of downturn. Nobody wants the economy to suffer. Well, businesses are seriously worried about what's
Let's remember the growth figures from last week that showed growth again in the last quarter of last year. Every single projection of Project Fear from before the referendum has been completely disproven. The economy is on a stable footing. And as for the House of Lords...
Just to come back on that, the initial figures are absolutely right on growth, but don't forget we've seen the longest period of wages stagnating for a very long time, and people are really feeling the squeeze on their living standards.
I just want to keep us on the Lord's angle to the whole Brexit story. Now, it seems to be clear that they're not going to block it, but the way in which they send back the EU withdrawal bill will not be the way in which it arrived in the upper house. The government's vision of Brexit will be amended.
What is the government's vision of Brexit? I think that's one of the crucial questions. When I was an MP, I was on the Select Committee, the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee. We were doing a Brexit report, which has been published this week, and we went to the Bundestag quite often, and we talked to German politicians. And the thing they said time and time again is there a secret plan? Is there something that we don't know about? Or are your ministers really as chaotic as they appear to be? To which my response was, no, they really are as chaotic as they seem to be. I mean, if you listen to David Davis being cross-examined, about Brexit. It is deeply embarrassing. He has no clue.
Leave the Brexit.
What result
leave the Brexit bulldog alone, Ayesha, and take us inside the Mail on Sunday.
Well,
problems within the Conservative ranks. I think everyone can.
And that actually flows from the sort of mixed messages on sort of Brexit. So Theresa May, she went from being that difficult woman to everyone calling her poor Theresa May now. She's constantly beleaguered, and today she gets quite a stern warning from Grant Shapps, former Tory chairman, who says, look, the clock is ticking. Either shape up or you're going to face a vote of no confidence. And, over this last week, we've seen lots of rumours swirling about letters being sent to the 1922 committee. And it's not just Grant Shapps. There are other very sensible figures in the Conservative Party who don't normally cause trouble. People are quite moderate. Johnny Mercer, who's seen as quite a rising star, he has backed this as well. And the one thing that is absolutely clear is that the Tory party is an absolute divided mess at the moment. The sort of kind of contest for the leadership has already begun.
Yeah, but not falling apart in the way in which the major government did. Not yet, anyway.
Well, not yet. But I mean, look, you've got Gavin Williamson on manoeuvres. You've got
the front of the Sunday Times.
You've got the
Telegraph
Chancellor, who's got a very different message from the Prime Minister on Brexit. You've got Boris Johnson, who's constantly just trolling Theresa May the whole time, and the whole thing is a mess.
But the reason, of course, why they're reluctant to knife the Prime Minister, because, as you know, the Tories are so obsequious in public and so vicious in private when it comes to their leadership, is that list there in the Daily Mail of possible contenders. That does not look like Britain when you look at these faces, and they're worried that if they ditch Theresa May, somebody worse could come along, and that's why they're holding their hand.
Look, I think Grant Shapps calling for her to go or to name the date is very old news, because I think he said it last October or November.
But the letters are stacking up.
And I think the media enjoy stoking up this so-called Tory turmoil, but I think it's overdone. And if we talk about divisions, your party, Ayesha, the Labour Party, last time there was a vote, Jeremy Corbyn had 40 of his MPs back him and 100-odd against him.
Look, I've been very critical of Corbyn, but you answer me this question honestly, Jonathan. Who is more stable in their leadership in the party, Jeremy Corbyn or Theresa May?
I think Theresa May is not in as strong a position as she was before the last election.
Do you remember the election campaign? Strong and stable. Who looks at this beleaguered Prime Minister and thinks she represents strength or stability?
I want us to finish briefly, if I can.
For her.
I want to finish it briefly, if I can, on a story which I'm sure will unite you all. The Express, page 5. Donald Trump.
Oh.
Should he be getting an invite to the royal wedding?
I think
of course he should.
It's entirely up to the couple to decide who they invite, and certainly I don't think he should have an invite as well.
Well, Trump says, doesn't he, in that hard-hitting interview that he did, a really no-holds-barred...
Sorry, this is the point at which I kind of do a turn to camera and go...
like a fourth wall kind of thing,
interview, really, where Piers Morgan left him on the ropes. He said that he hadn't had an invitation. Well, it's hardly surprising, given what he's said about the royal family.
Absolutely.
And, of course, Meghan Markle says that he is a misogynist. So I don't imagine he'll be sitting on the front row.
I would love it if they just trolled him massively. I'd love it if they didn't invite him, but invited Obama, Obama the best man, and invited Hillary Clinton as well.
Very briefly, isn't it about time? Of course, there are some things that he has said which many people will take affront at, more than affront, in fact. But he's the President of the United States. And if there is a visit in the diary, it should be allowed to go ahead.
He's Islamophobic, he's racist, he's called countries, African countries, the S word, homophobic. He's retweeted Britain First. The people in this country have spoken, there will be riots in the street. So I think, to quote the Brexit campaign, I think it's time Britain took back control.
And Meghan doesn't want him. That's the key. And Meghan looks as if she's quite gutsy in this whole wedding planning, because she said that she's going to give a speech. It's against royal tradition, but she said her dad's a bit nervous about speaking in front of the Queen, and so she's going to get up there and Gaed Laldy herself, and she's going to deliver a speech paying tribute to Harry. So why shouldn't she ban Trump?
For non-Scottish viewers who don't understand the phrase "Gaed Laldy," do check out my Twitter feed immediately after the show. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.